the contract that broke him. How fame turned Yu Minglong into a prisoner of his own success. They said he had everything: the fame, the fortune, the fans who worshipped the ground he walked on. But behind the lights, the cameras, and the perfectly rehearsed smiles, Yu Minglong was living inside a cage built out of golden bars. His success, the very thing that millions envied, was also the very thing that slowly broke him. His death shocked the world. But for those who had been paying attention, the warning signs were always there. Yu Minglong was never the type to complain publicly. He carried his silence like armor, smiling through pain, bowing through exhaustion, and performing through heartbreak. Every step he took on stage was calculated, every glance toward the camera carefully timed, not out of vanity, but because his contract demanded it. Behind the shimmering perfection of his image lay the darkest truth of modern entertainment, that artists like him are not free. When Yu signed his first major contract, it was supposed to be a dream come true. The agency promised him global fame, luxury endorsements, and the chance to release his own music. What they didn't tell him, at least not clearly, was that he was signing away his freedom. The clauses were endless. His personal life, his friendships, even his emotions were scripted, managed, and monitored. Every word he spoke on camera had to be approved. Every social media post went through 3 levels of censorship. He wasn't allowed to date, to express sadness, or to speak against the company. He was theirs, body, mind, and soul. At first, he played along. He told himself this was the price of success, that every great star had to sacrifice something. But as the years went on, the walls around him tightened. His schedules became brutal. Months without a single day off, flights that blurred into each other, rehearsals that went past midnight. He would show up on set with dark circles under his eyes, still smiling for the fans. Cameras captured him laughing with co-stars, yet in the unedited behind-the-scenes clips, his hands trembled slightly. Those who knew him privately described him as kind, gentle, and humble, but also increasingly distant. He stopped replying to messages. He began avoiding group dinners and industry events. One close friend later revealed that Yu often said, "They only love the version of me they created, not the real me." His company, however, continued to market him as a flawless idol, the boy who never complains, the man who never ages, the star who always shines. The truth was that Yu Minglong was crumbling under the weight of perfection. Insiders spoke quietly about the silence clause in his contract, a rule forbidding him to speak publicly about his mental or physical health. If he ever appeared unwell, the agency would release carefully worded statements about fatigue or minor illness, never allowing the truth to come out. He was expected to smile no matter what, to keep the illusion alive for millions of fans who saw him as untouchable. It was during one particularly grueling year that his condition worsened. Between filming dramas, recording songs, attending brand events, and fulfilling promotional obligations, Yu reportedly went over 200 days without proper rest. His manager at the time later said he would sometimes fall asleep in makeup chairs or inside his car, only to be woken up for another shoot. When asked why he didn't fight back, Yu simply smiled and said, "It's all part of the dream." But dreams can turn into nightmares, especially when they belong to someone else. By the time he reached the peak of his fame, Yu was living a double life. In public, he was radiant, every photo, every performance perfect. In private, he was breaking. He began writing in a private journal, the contents of which were reportedly found after his death. In it, he described feeling trapped in a performance that never ends. He wrote about missing his old self, the one who could walk freely, laugh genuinely, and love without fear of scandal. He also wrote about the clause, that one line in his contract that seemed innocent at first glance, but was, in truth, the heart of his prison. It bound him to silence. He couldn't speak about mistreatment. He couldn't expose the truth of the relentless pressure, the verbal abuse, or the manipulation behind closed doors. He couldn't even tell the world he was struggling. His pain had to be hidden. His tears had to fall in secret. Fans began to notice subtle changes, the slower smiles, the quiet eyes, the occasional tremor in his hand during fan meetings. In one live event, he was seen gripping the microphone tightly, his knuckles white as he forced a smile. "I'm fine," he said, voice shaking slightly. The crowd cheered, not realizing those two words were a lie, so heavy they could have crushed him. There were rumors that he had tried to renegotiate his contract, to take a break, or to start a new chapter on his own. But the entertainment machine doesn't stop easily, especially when an entire empire profits off one man's image. Walking away would have cost him millions, perhaps even blacklisting him permanently. And so he stayed, trapped between duty and despair. In his final year, his health visibly declined. He appeared thinner, paler. His once bright voice carried a subtle weariness. Interviews became shorter, his laughter more forced. Still, he kept performing, because that was what he was paid and legally obligated to do. Behind the camera, though, staff whispered that he would sometimes stand in silence after filming, staring at the floor for long moments before quietly walking away. The night before his death, you attended a small private meeting with fans. Videos from that event would later go viral, showing him smiling softly, his voice calm but fragile. At one point, a fan shouted, "Please rest well." And he paused, eyes glistening, before whispering, "I hope I can." Few realized the heartbreaking truth hidden in that reply. When news of his death broke, fans flooded social media with disbelief. How could someone who seemed so happy, so grateful, be gone so suddenly? But those who had read between the lines knew. They knew that fame had taken everything from him: his rest, his voice, his identity. The contract that had made him famous was also the one that slowly destroyed him. In the days that followed, more details emerged. His schedule, it turned out, had been relentless until the very end. Just a week before his death, he was still attending promotional events, filming scenes, and recording music. He hadn't taken a vacation in over 2 years. There were whispers that he had begged for a break, that he had cried during one late-night call, saying, "I just want to feel free again." But the show had to go on. And so, Menglong became another tragic symbol of the entertainment industry's dark underbelly. A world where talent is exploited, vulnerability is hidden, and silence is enforced through legal chains. His story isn't just about one man's fall. It's a reflection of a system that turns human beings into brands and emotions into profit. Fans now replay his old interviews, searching for the signs they missed, the half smiles, the distant stares, the words he never said. In one recording, when asked what freedom meant to him, you paused for a long time before answering. Maybe it's being able to breathe without asking permission. The stage lights still flickered in his memory, blinding, hot, and merciless. Every flash of the camera was a reminder that Menglong belonged to the world now, not to himself. The boy who once sang because he loved music now sang because he was ordered to. His smile, once soft and genuine, had become a performance perfected by repetition. What the world saw as brilliance was, to him, a beautiful kind of suffering, one that glittered under spotlights but cut deep behind closed doors. After his death, old footage began resurfacing. A video from a variety show captured him mid-performance, his expression serene but his hands visibly shaking. It looked almost artistic, a man trembling as he sang about love and loss. But fans who rewatched it now realized those weren't dramatic gestures. They were signs of exhaustion, anxiety, and emotional collapse. One could almost see the pain crawl up through his fingers, the strain hidden beneath the surface of his perfectly rehearsed act. Behind the scenes, his life had turned into a relentless loop. Call times before dawn, flights that blurred into hotel rooms into sets. His phone would buzz with constant reminders, rehearsals, fittings, endorsements, interviews. Even his meals were scheduled. A nutritionist hired by his agency dictated what he could and couldn't eat, not for health, but for image. When he wanted to visit family, the request had to go through a series of approvals. If the agency didn't deem it career appropriate, he stayed where he was. He had money, but not control. He had fans, but no real friends left in his daily life. He had a voice, but couldn't use it to tell his truth. One of his co-stars later described a day on set when you collapsed briefly between scenes. The director, pressured by time, told everyone to keep rolling. Minutes later, you stood up, brushed off the dust, and smiled again for the camera. That clip made it into the final cut. Audiences called his expression heart-wrenching and powerful. But no one knew the heartbreak wasn't acting. There was another moment, a fan meet held just weeks before his death. The hall was full, the crowd chanting his name, holding signs that read, "Forever with you." When you stepped onto the stage, the cheers were deafening. Yet for a split second, the camera caught something, his eyes darting downward, lips pressing tightly together, as if forcing the joy out of thin air. He said softly, "I'm happy to be here," and everyone screamed. No one noticed how his hand trembled as he waved. After the event, witnesses recalled how he lingered backstage long after the audience had gone. One staff member found him sitting alone, still holding the microphone, staring at his reflection in the black TV screen. "Do you think they'd still love me if I disappeared for a while?" he asked quietly. The staff member didn't know how to answer. You smiled and said, "It's okay. I already know." He often wrote in secret, short notes, phrases, or lines that read like confessions. Some of them were found in his notebook after his death. "Every smile costs me a piece of myself. They own my name, my songs, my face, but not my heart. I still have that, I think. I used to dream of applause. Now I dream of silence." The silence clause in his contract had become a noose around his soul. It demanded obedience. It forbade emotion. He could never admit when he was tired, when he was lonely, when he wanted to stop. It was written so coldly, so precisely, that even if he tried to speak out, the law would silence him. His words could be used against him. His image could be frozen, edited, and controlled. When friends tried to intervene, urging him to rest, he'd shake his head. "If I stop, they'll replace me," he said. "If I talk, they'll erase me." And so he carried on, day after day, smile after smile, until the man behind the idol began to vanish. There were days when he wouldn't speak at all outside of performances, days when he'd sit in makeup chairs with tears in his eyes, saying nothing as stylists powdered over the evidence. Once, a makeup artist recalled him whispering, "Please don't cover this one," pointing at the tear streak that had already dried. "I want to remember how this feels." She didn't understand what he meant then. She does now. His last months were a blur of contradictions. He filmed a music video that spoke of freedom, running through empty streets, breaking chains, reaching toward the sky. The irony was painful. The director said you delivered that performance with eerie precision, as if he knew what the song really meant. During one take, he fell to his knees, eyes closed, breath shaking. The crew thought it was intentional, but that wasn't acting. That was exhaustion, emotional, physical, spiritual. When the camera stopped, he reportedly said, "That's enough for today." It wasn't rebellion, just quiet surrender. Yet, even in his breaking, he was beautiful. That was the tragedy of Yu Menglong. He could turn pain into poetry, sorrow into art. The world applauded what was killing him. After his death, many began to question the industry that had created and consumed him. His contract, rumored to be one of the strictest in the industry, became a symbol of everything wrong with fame. Entertainment companies wrapped their stars in chains made of promises, success, fame, and love from millions. But behind those promises lay control, manipulation, and the erasure of individuality. Fans started petitions demanding justice, calling for transparency in celebrity contracts. They flooded the internet with messages like he deserved freedom, they worked him to death, and no dream should cost a life. Hashtags like #JusticeForYuMinglong and Free the Artists began trending worldwide. In one haunting video, a fan edited together clips of Yu's final interviews. Each time he said the words, "I'm fine," they overlapped, the same phrase, spoken in different tones, in different ears, each one weaker than the last. The final frame froze on his face, eyes glassy, lips trembling slightly. Then silence. That silence said everything. In the end, Yu Menglong didn't die because of one moment, one breakdown, or one event. He died because every day was a small surrender to contracts, to expectations, to a system that treated him like a product instead of a person. The applause that once lifted him up had become the very sound that drowned out his cries for help. If you watch closely, you can still see it in the final video he ever recorded. The faint sadness behind his eyes, the slight pause before he spoke, the almost imperceptible sigh as he looked into the camera. "Thank you for loving me," he said. The world didn't know he meant it as goodbye. Now, the stage where he once stood feels emptier. The lights that once shone for him feel colder. His name echoes not as a brand but as a warning. A reminder that no amount of success is worth a soul that can't breathe freely. Yu Menglong will forever be remembered, not just as the star who shined, but as the man who tried to survive his own light. His story lingers, a whispered truth in an industry obsessed with perfection. Because in the end, all he ever wanted was simple. Not applause, not fame, not fortune. Just freedom, and a chance to live